Good morning, all. Very warm welcome to Trevor Asserson. I am surprised that they have allowed you out. Thought they'd want to keep you caged for as long as possible, but it's another sign of the relaxations of lockdown. It's great to have you back, Trevor, and I hope that you have a successful trip. Sorry not to see you in person. Also, today is the last day of the Shiva for Daniel's mum, and Daniel, you've been with us the entire week. It's been our very special pleasure to be able to be with you and to support you. And I hope that you'll continue to be with us. And this is the first step, of course, or one of the important early steps in the process of bereavement. And may you go from strength to strength with wonderful memories. Well, today is a new Mishnah, Mishnah 18 in the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel would say as follows: Al shlosha davarim ha'olam kayam. The world endures with these three qualities: al ha'emet, because of truth, v'al hadin, and because of justice, v'al shalom, and because of peace. Shneimar, and there's a verse that encapsulates all three of these. It is taken from the book of Zechariah in chapter 8. Emet, that's truth, umishpat, and justice, shalom, and peace, shaftu b'sha'areichem, administer in your gates. Well, a number of points to make about this. First of all, this Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, this is the Rabban Shimon Gamliel II, just to remind you of the Hillel's dynasty that lasted for so many years. Hillel had a son called Shimon, who we know very little about. His son was Rabban Gamliel, that's Rabban Gamliel I, and his son was Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel I. He was the one who lived around at the time of the destruction of the temple. Then we had this hugely important personality, Rabban Gamliel II, who was, of course, at the time of Rabbi Akiva and all the other great sages, the head of the Sanhedrin, immediately after the destruction of the temple in Yavne, and he is called Rabban Gamliel of Yavne. Very, very formative, hugely important personality. But interestingly enough, we don't have anything from him in Pirkei Avot. We don't see him as one of our, we don't see his specific teachings. And then comes Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel II, his son, all very confusing because every generation was called by the name of their grandfather. And so he's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel II, and he lived, by the way, also a very difficult life, whereas Shimon Gamliel I, as I mentioned to you, suffered a martyr's death, and is one of the Asara Harugim, one of the 10 martyrs. He was beheaded by the Romans for being a conspirator in the great revolt against the Romans, which resulted in the destruction of the temple. This Rabban Shimon Gamliel II is now quite a bit later, and he is at the time of the Bar Kokhba. Is a young man at the time of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, and so he lives in the aftermath of that as the head of the Sanhedrin. Again, a very, very influential person. And a time of enormous oppression, the Hadrianic oppressions, a very, very difficult time for the Jewish people, and he was a superb leader who led them through those difficult times. Interestingly, if you look at the early Mishnayot in Pirkei Avot, people don't have any kind of title. You know, you had Shimon HaTzadik, just called him by his name. Yossi ben Yoezer, Yossi the son of Yoezer. Then you had Hillel and Shammai. Somewhere along the line, towards the Second Temple period, people began to take on the title of Rebbe or Rabbi, which is the one that we continue to use to this day. And it's not quite clear exactly why this title was required and why a person's name per se just wasn't good enough in its own right. And then you have specific individuals who are not called Rebbe, which means my teacher or my rabbi, but Rabbanan, which means the rabbi. In other words, like a chief rabbi. So Rabbanan was the appellation, was the title that was given to those unique individuals who were the heads of the Sanhedrin. And therefore you have Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, as opposed to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. At any rate, he wants to say on three things the world endures. Now, this is interesting because in the second Mishnah of Pirkei Avot, we had a statement from Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, who said that there are three things upon which the world stands. There are three pillars of the world. And so there it was Omed, Shlosha Davarim, or Shlosha Davarim Ha'olam Omed. And here you have our Shlosha Davarim Ha'olam Kayam. Well, what is the difference between Omed and Kayam? Well, the suggestion is that those three things on which the world stands, the pillars, and they were the Torah and divine worship and acts of loving kindness, they are pillars in the sense that if you take them away, the world will simply cease to exist. They are the foundations of the world. The world was created for these things to be present. Had they not been present, there could not have been a world. On the other hand, these three items that we're going to speak about, truth and justice and peace, are important for the world to be able to continue. It's part for a healthy society, for there to be a society that is worthwhile persisting in and keeping going. Kayam, it's something which it helps the world to endure in the best way. The world could exist without them, but it wouldn't be a very nice world. And the world can only endure if these three things are here. Truth and justice and peace. And we shall speak about them tomorrow.